Thank you. I'm Wilf, and I'm speaking just as a citizen here. And I just want to first say that by the turnout today, I can see why I like living along the North Shore. I want to be part of a community that cares and is concerned, and that we try to take care of each other, and we try to take care of the earth, that this beautiful space that we have along the North Shore. In a day in January, I was driving down Main Street in Tatamagouche, and I was following a salt truck into town. And it was a bit slushy, and there was cars at the side of the road. And the salt truck stopped in front of me, and I was just about at the bank going into town behind it. And there was a delivery truck making deliveries to the drugstore. And the two vehicles couldn't pass because they were too wide. So we had to wait for the delivery man to make the deliveries, to come back out to move his truck so that the salt truck could ease by it, and we went on. And I started thinking, what would happen in this area if we had the amount of traffic that is talked about for fracking? As you know, fracking takes a lot of water. How many trucks are we talking about? I started to Google and do some research. Fracking takes a lot of water. It also produces a lot of liquid waste, and in most cases this is trucked in and trucked back out. In the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation estimates that each well per frac requires 2.4 to 7.8 million gallons of water. This translates roughly into 400 to 600 tanker truckloads of liquids to a well, and 200 to 300 tanker truckloads of liquid waste from a well. An 18-wheeler truck weighs up to 80,000 pounds. Day in, day out, these trucks destroy roads and bridges and leave towns to clean up the mess. I'm quoting here, and I continue to quote. Further, the one-well model is not an accurate representation of fracking operations, which can consist of 20 wells per pad and dozens of pads. Overall, 38,400 to 172,800 tanker truck trips are possible over a well pad life. Now these numbers are a bit dazzling, so I tried to do my own calculations, and I figured out that if a tanker truck trips runs every 10 minutes for 24 hours a day, so if you ran a truck 24 hours a day, as they do, for every 10 minutes there was a truck coming by, it would take 267 days to reach the lower number that is estimated from the New York statistics. 267 days of trucks every 10 minutes. We all know that along the North Shore, Highway 6 is the main highway. It goes from Amherst through Pugwash. It's the main street of Amherst, it's the main street of Pugwash, it's the main street of Wallace, it's the main street of Tatamagouche, it's the main street of River John, it's the main street of Tony River. There's no ring roads around our villages. There's no side roads. The side roads are much worse condition than the main road. Can you imagine this number of trucks? And these wells will be taking place on the side roads as well. Can you imagine, I was lucky enough to go out to our little piece of land in Malagash the other day. The road is barely passable now. Can you imagine what it would be with more trucks? From my research, I came across many instances where communities had initially been generally in favor, at least not strongly opposed to fracking, before it began. But once they got into it and experienced the tanker traffic and the other effects, they became strongly opposed. However, once it had started and the approval had been given, they found it very hard to stop. In Texas, there's a study by the Corpus Christi-based Naismith Engineering, and it quotes online, it quotes their lead engineer, David Underbrick Sr., as saying that a typical county road with a base material of 4 to 6 inches and possibly an asphalt seal coat would have a lifespan of 20 years. But, quote, all it takes is one pass of 6 million pounds of drilling equipment to destroy a road like that, end of quote. The Texas Star-Telegram.com headlined in July 3rd, 2012 that, quote, drilling trucks have caused an estimated $2 billion in damage to Texas roads. The article went on to state that repairing the roads has damaged by drilling activity to bring them up to standard would conservatively cost $1 billion. And that doesn't include the costs of maintaining interstate and state highways. Who pays for this? While gas corporations made record profits, local governments had to raise property taxes to cover related costs. The article in the Star Telegram goes on to state that, quote, all of the 8% gain in property tax revenues in the past year have gone into road maintenance. So what do we do? What do others recommend? First of all, many who online, if you do some research, say they wish they'd never seen fracking in their areas. And so, to my mind, the only sane thing to do is to say no to this level of activity. However, if it goes ahead, and this inquiry is asking, there are some regulations that some jurisdictions suggest being put into place. In New York, for example, they say that there must be a comprehensive plan done in the beginning, and that this plan has to have baseline, legal baseline levels of what is the condition of the roads now, and how much impact can they survive. Otherwise, you have no legal grounds for any coming back. Some other people suggest that you need to put into place various requirements for permits, and you can charge for the permits. You can make some regulations, but usually the local regulations will only allow you to legislate in terms of road safety. And you can't specifically say we're going to limit the amount of fracking. So the recommendations are for as strong a legal and enforceable limits as you can. You need to build up your enforcement forces, because they also say these trucks travel all over the place on back roads. There aren't weigh scales. A number of places had put in weight restrictions, but the fracking companies just ignored them and nobody could prove. And in many cases they ended up in court. If they tried to raise charges, the companies just took the local governments to court. So there's a number of pending cases. My own sense, and I'm not an engineer, and I'd love to hear a road engineer give me a different perspective, but it seems insane for me to maintain the kind of quality of life that we are enjoying and want to preserve along the North Shore, to entertain this kind of business for which we will end up with the costs, but we will not end up with the benefits.